Attention, please. Put your stuff away for a minute. Okay, close it up. Close your games. Pay attention so you don't have to go back and watch this YouTube video. Last week when we were here, we learned how to make some basic projects in Scratch. Pretty user-friendly way to code because you don't have to type anything, so it's a lot harder to make mistakes, right? We learned that Scratch is a Sprite-based programming language, so every block of code that you create is always attached to a picture of some sort. Usually it always starts out with the cat, but there's a lot of good ones here. I like these really urban, thuggy looking kids like this girl here. Let's see. Look at her. You could tell she means business. Anina. Or this guy here. Look at him. Aman. And his costumes. Oh, he only has one. Some of them have more than one costume. You can make them dance. Let me see. This guy here. Look at that. Is that Bruno Mars? Look how many costumes he's got. Boom, 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 boom. He's got 7 of them. Okay, so if I want to attach code to a sprite, I just start always by making a green flag to let Scratch know that I'm going to be launching in there. And there's lots of different options that we can make. We can make a move, which we'll do later when we start making some more game-based projects. Looks, we could switch the costume, which we found out can make an appearance of animation, right? Because depending on how many costumes they have, if you switch back and forth between them, you can make him look like he's running or dancing or whatever. You could actually change his size and change his color too. Make it look really freaky. There you go. That's all under looks. Another important thing for looks is the say command, because you a lot of the times you need to communicate to whoever's using your code instructions and stuff, and most of the time you do that through these say commands. Okay. Sound is not important right now. Events, the only one we're using right now is the green flag one. Control, we learned a little bit about that too. There is a wait command which is useful to stop your code from running too fast. We learned a little bit about repeat, where you could put a block of code in there and it'll run 10 times or 100 times or whatever. We're going to learn a lot more about that in the next few labs. And then we're also going to learn how to let the computer make decisions and decide what's happening in the code. We're going to do that with this if block. So you're going to check if something's happening, and if it is, do this. But most importantly, what we learned last time we were here is that if you want to prompt someone to type in information and you want to save it, you use the blue bubble under sensing. And it is the bubble called ask. The reason why you use this one is because when you run your code, it actually makes a window there. You see that window, and it allows you to type stuff in. Now, where does that stuff type in? What's your name? Okay. It gets typed in this answer bubble here. Let me show you. And that's the way you save information to use for later. Okay. Remember that computer programming at its most basic level is getting input, manipulating the input, and then outputting it. So how do you get input? For the first step is you use this blue bubble, and then you save it. It gets saved in the answer bubble. Let me see if I can zoom in just so you can see that a little better. Go ahead. Zoom in. There we go. There it is right there. Okay, great. The only problem with this answer bubble is if you ask 2 questions in a row, the first question gets overwritten. What's your name? What's your first name? What's your middle name? Okay. What's your middle name? So if I run that, my first name is Donald. Okay. So now the answer is Donald there. What's your middle name? David. The problem is Donald got overwritten, and I no longer have access to it for my program to use later on a later date. So the way around that we figured out when we were here last was to create your own variables that will store stuff. And that is under the orange bubble. The green bubble was basic math stuff. And we'll do more of that stuff today, like adding, subtracting, timesing, multiplying, but making your own variables, I think, is the most important key to Scratch. So I'll make a variable, I'll give it a smart name, like first name, something like that. And I'll make a second variable called middle name. It's not that important that these are very accurately described variable names, but later on, if we make a program with, let's say, 20 variables in it, you don't want to make them like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So then when you're going to code later on, it'll be hard to remember how many points you have left and how many points the enemy has and stuff like that if you give them non-descriptive variable names, shall we say. Okay, so there's a couple of things you can do with variables. You can set them, you can change them, and that's about it. So I'm going to set first name to whatever the person types for that blue question. Now that's why it's important that there's this answer bubble here. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to set my middle name to middle name there and put it to answer. Okay. Now, let's run that again. Hopefully it'll save both. So now I type Donald. That's great. It got saved in the answer, but it also got saved under the first name variable, so I can use that later. And then for my middle name, I'm going to type David, and now I have access to both of them. If I ever need to use them, I can, because now they also have their own bubbles. Do you see that? So for instance, if I want to say them or whatever, maybe spaced out a little bit, I could use this join command here. I have to join a few of them together because I want to say hello. Then I want to say the first name, like that. Give myself a little more space here. Then I want to say maybe a space in between the two names. So I'll put that in there. And then I'll make this just the space. It's hard to tell that took, but it did. And then I'll join that. It's a really messy way to join, by the way, here. So hopefully he will say, if you were to code a line like this where you wanted to say hello first name plus middle name, it would be very easy in a coding language just to type that line of code. But that is one of the trade-offs of Scratch. Scratch is really easy. It allows you to drag and drop all your code. You can't make typos. But when you want to do, there are some very simple things in Scratch that are quite complicated by dragging bubbles. All right, let's check it out. Let's see if he does it. So what's your first name? Donald. What's your middle name? David. Hello, Donald David. And I can already see that it messed it up a little bit. It forgot to put a space in between, so I need to maybe make one more join command. Or I could put a space after the word hello. It should work. Should work perfectly. Donald David. Hello, Donald David. There you go. That was the most important aspect of what we learned about Scratch last 2 weeks ago, I guess. Okay? So we'll stop that there. I'll post that on YouTube.